Marcus stands in the driveway of a house he's about to buy. 4 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, a yard big enough for the dog he's been promising his kids. The number on the listing reads $500,000. He's done the math 100 times. 20% down, a 30-year mortgage, a monthly payment he can comfortably afford. Simple, clean, solved. But here's the question almost nobody asks before signing. What does a $500,000 house actually cost? Not the price, the cost. Because the moment Marcus hands over that down payment, a second, invisible ledger opens. One that has nothing to do with the number his realtor quoted him. Property taxes that climb every year regardless of his income. Insurance premiums shaped by wildfire maps and flood zones he's never studied. A roof that will fail. A furnace that will die. Interest payments stacked on interest payments, compounding silently for 3 decades. The listing price is just the entry fee. What happens after is where the real story lives, and it's a story most buyers never read until they're already living inside it. Because the real economics of owning a house has almost nothing to do with the number on the listing. Here's the distinction almost nobody makes. Purchase price is what you agree to pay the seller. Total cost of ownership is what the house actually takes from you over the years you live in it, and the gap between those two numbers is enormous. Start stacking the pieces. The down payment, maybe $100,000 up front. Then mortgage interest, which on a standard 30-year loan can add more than the original price of the house by the time it's paid off. Property taxes, billed annually, rising with local budgets. Home insurance, recalculated every renewal. Routine maintenance, gutters, HVAC servicing, pest control. Repairs that arrive without warning. A cracked water heater, a collapsed fence. Closing costs at purchase, HOA fees if the neighborhood has them. Utilities that scale with square footage. Renovations that homeowners almost always underestimate. Take Marcus's $500,000 house. His mortgage payment might land around $2,800 a month. But once taxes, insurance, maintenance, and repairs are folded in, his real monthly cost can climb toward $3,800 or more. That's the trap. A house can look perfectly affordable on the mortgage calculator and still quietly drain a household's finances in reality. Here's where the real distortion happens: the mortgage itself. Take a hypothetical $400,000 loan, 30-year term, fixed at 6.5% interest. The monthly principal and interest payment lands around $2,528. Multiply that across 360 payments, and the total comes to roughly $910,000. On a $400,000 loan. That's over $510,000 in interest alone, more than the loan itself. This is why the interest rate matters so much. It isn't a minor detail buried in the paperwork. It's the single biggest lever in the entire transaction. Move that rate up even 1 percentage point, and total interest paid can swing by tens of thousands of dollars. Move it down, and a buyer can save enough to fund a child's college education. The loan term matters too. A 15-year mortgage means higher monthly payments but dramatically less interest overall. A 30-year mortgage spreads the pain thinner but lets it compound far longer. And there's the choice between fixed-rate and adjustable-rate loans. A fixed rate locks in certainty. An adjustable rate starts lower but can rise with the market, turning a comfortable payment into a strained one almost overnight. The mortgage isn't just how you buy the house. It's the second price tag, the one nobody shows you at closing. None of this shows up on the mortgage statement. That's what makes it dangerous. Property taxes arrive separately, often folded into escrow, but rising independently of the loan, sometimes 2% of the home's value every single year. Home insurance renews annually, and premiums have surged in many markets, especially where wildfire or flood risk has crept into underwriting models. Then come the physical realities of owning a structure that ages the moment you move in. A roof lasts 20 to 25 years before replacement, and a new one can run $12,000 to $20,000. An HVAC system fails on its own schedule, not the homeowners, with replacement costing $6,000 to $12,000. Plumbing issues, a burst pipe, a failing water heater, can hit unexpectedly for $1,000 to $5,000. Appliances wear out in cycles: refrigerators, dishwashers, washers, dryers, each with a 10 to 15-year lifespan. Exterior maintenance, painting, siding, landscaping chips away steadily at the budget, and when the house eventually sells, closing costs and agent commissions can consume 5 to 6% of the sale price. The mortgage payment was never the full picture. It was only ever the down payment on a much longer bill. But ownership isn't just a story of costs. It has a counterweight, and it's the reason people keep buying houses despite everything stacked against them: equity. Every mortgage payment splits into two pieces: interest, which vanishes, and principal, which doesn't. That principal portion chips away at the loan balance, and as it shrinks, the homeowner's stake in the property grows. The math is simple. Home value minus remaining mortgage equals equity. Pay down $50,000 of principal over a decade, and that $50,000 now belongs to Marcus, not the bank. But here's where the narrative needs honesty, not hype. Home values don't move in one direction. In some markets, prices climb steadily for decades. In others, they stagnate for years or drop sharply, as millions of homeowners learned in 2008. Location, local job markets, interest rates, and broader economic conditions all shape whether that equity grows, stalls, or shrinks. Still, for many households, home equity becomes one of the largest components of net worth they'll ever build. A forced savings account, paid down one mortgage statement at a time. Which raises a harder question, one most homeowners never let themselves ask: what if that same money had been put to work somewhere else entirely? This is the concept most homeowners never learn, and it's the one that separates casual buyers from people who actually think about capital. Opportunity cost. Imagine $100,000 sitting available for a down payment. The moment it's spent on a house, it's gone from every other possibility. That's the trade nobody states out loud. Choosing the house means choosing not to invest that capital elsewhere, not to diversify it, not to keep it liquid for other opportunities. Consider a purely hypothetical scenario. That same $100,000, instead of becoming a down payment, gets spread across a diversified portfolio: index funds, bonds, maybe a mix of asset classes. Over time, it could grow. It could also shrink. Markets carry real risk, and past performance guarantees nothing. But unlike home equity, that money stays liquid, accessible in a downturn, a job loss, an emergency, without needing to sell a house or take on debt against it. A house concentrates wealth into a single, illiquid asset tied to one location. A portfolio spreads risk across many assets, sectors, and geographies. This is precisely why wealthy households rarely think in terms of, should I buy a house? They think in terms of capital allocation, where every dollar across every asset class is working as hard as possible. Take that same hypothetical household, call them the Reynolds family, and run them through both paths side by side. Renting means their capital stays liquid. No down payment locked into a single asset, no surprise roof replacement, no property tax bill in the mail. If a job opportunity opens up across the country, they can leave with 30 days' notice. Upfront costs are often just a security deposit, a fraction of what a down payment demands. But rent is not wasted money. It's the price of flexibility and someone else absorbing the maintenance risk. What renting doesn't build is equity. Every payment disappears permanently, with nothing accumulating behind it. Ownership flips that structure. The Reynolds family locks in housing costs against inflation, builds equity with every mortgage payment, and gains a form of stability renting can't offer. No landlord selling the property out from under them. Over decades, if values rise, that equity compounds into real wealth. Neither path is universally correct. The right answer bends on variables specific to the household: their location's price-to-rent ratio, how long they plan to stay, their income stability, the mortgage rate available to them, and what returns their capital could realistically earn elsewhere. It's not a moral choice, it's a financial one. So when does ownership actually make financial sense? A few patterns tend to hold up. It works when the buyer expects to stay put for many years, long enough for transaction costs and early interest payments to be offset by equity growth. It works when the monthly payment fits comfortably within the budget, not stretched to the edge of what income allows. It works when emergency savings exist separately from the down payment, so a failed furnace doesn't become a financial crisis. It works when the buyer has honestly budgeted for maintenance, not just the mortgage. It works when the local price-to-rent ratio is reasonable, rather than a market where renting is dramatically cheaper than buying. And critically, it works when the purchase makes sense on its own terms, not because the buyer is betting on the house appreciating to bail out an otherwise strained decision. Buying becomes risky in the opposite conditions: short time horizons, thin savings, a payment that consumes too much income, or a purchase price that only works if prices keep climbing. None of this is individual advice. Every household's numbers are different, but the underlying principle holds everywhere. A house should make sense on the math in front of you, not the math you're hoping for. Zoom out from Marcus, from the Reynolds family, from any single driveway, and the $500,000 number stops looking like a private decision. It's the output of an entire economic system working in the background. Mortgage rates set by the Federal Reserve's broader policy ripple directly into what buyers can afford, since a higher rate shrinks the loan size a given monthly payment can support. Housing supply, how many homes actually get built, depends on construction costs, zoning restrictions, labor availability, and land prices in a given metro area. Demand moves with population growth, migration patterns, and demographics, as generations like millennials move through prime home-buying years. Wage growth determines how much income households can put toward housing before other spending gets squeezed. Inflation pushes up material and labor costs for new construction, feeding straight into home prices. Bank lending standards decide who qualifies for a mortgage at all, tightening or loosening the pool of eligible buyers. And household wealth, concentrated heavily in real estate, means housing price swings ripple back into consumer spending and confidence across the whole economy. No single factor sets that $500,000 price tag. It's supply meeting demand, filtered through interest rates, wages, construction, and policy. A house price that mirrors the entire economy behind it. Back to Marcus, standing in that driveway, $500,000 listing in hand. The question was never really, can I afford this house? The real question was always, what does this house actually cost, and what does it actually build? There's no universal answer. Homeownership isn't automatically a good investment, and it isn't automatically a bad one. It's a financial tool, powerful in the right conditions, quietly damaging in the wrong ones. 5 lessons carry the weight of everything covered here. The purchase price is never the total cost. Mortgage interest can reshape the entire economics of a home, sometimes doubling what's actually paid. Maintenance and property taxes aren't optional line items. They're guaranteed, recurring, and often underestimated. Equity, patiently built payment by payment, can become one of the largest components of household wealth, and opportunity cost matters just as much as appreciation, because every dollar locked into a house is a dollar not working somewhere else. The smartest homeowner isn't necessarily the person who buys the most expensive house. It's the person who understands exactly what their house is costing them and what that money could have done instead. For more explanations of the money decisions hiding inside everyday life, subscribe to Money Mechanics.